Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the OPL Breakdown. It's actually, I can't believe we've only done 2 episodes of this before. Feels like we've done more. I guess because we've been doing the MSI coverage and the LCK coverage, feels like we've been doing this for longer. But yeah, welcome our guest as well. So our guest for today is Sharp, the head coach of Direwolves. So Sharp was the top laner, and he played mid lane as well for the Direwolves. And he was playing with them up until the end of Split 1 of 2016, where I believe you left for personal reasons, right? And let Chippy step in.
Yeah.
So yeah, he took that 6-month break from the Direwolves, but then rejoined the team at the beginning of this year as the head coach of this new super roster, right? So I'm really excited about this interview today. Like for me, personally, I think this Direwolves team is potentially the best one we've ever sent overseas. So I'm really excited to interview somebody that's been a part of that. So welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on.
It's all right, guys. I'm excited for the show as well.
Awesome. And the other person I have on the show, as usual, my co-host, Nick General. Thanks again, Nick. Although you don't really have a choice, like I said. You kind of have to come on. I'm just like, Nick, you're coming on this week. Don't have a choice. Yeah. So before we begin the show, I just want to mention a couple of things. So first of all, we're going to be running this show weekly, or as much as possible throughout Split 2 of the OPL. So we're going to go through the week's matchups, go through the standings as we go along. And just have different themes depending on which guests we have. So if you want to subscribe to the channel, each week we'll be releasing an episode about Split 2. And the other thing which I want to mention is the new Direwolves membership. So I saw Direwolves released a membership, which is really similar to the AFL style team memberships. So you get access to some exclusive content, and you get to become a member of the Direwolves, which I think is really cool. And if there are any Direwolves fans watching, or people want to get into the OPL, I recommend this for you. So I guess we'll start off with the first topic for tonight. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow the Direwolves journey starting at the beginning of 2017. So when this new super roster was put together, and we'll go from there and we'll work all the way up to the present and then talk a little bit about Split 2. So our first topic for tonight is going to be the building of this new Oceanic Super team and the coaching. So at the start of 2017, Direwolves rebuilt the roster, so picking up, I guess particularly Shernfire, widely regarded as potentially the best jungler Oceania has ever had, and picking up King and Destiny, very, very, very strong players in all the roles. So I guess the first question which I had is how did this roster get built? Were you involved in the building of this roster? Or was it something that they approached you and said, "Hey, Sharp, we've built this team. Would you like to coach it?"
Yeah. So originally, I wasn't a part of Direwolves as you stated before. I was, pursuing personal goals. Like I was at university and I had a job and stuff like that. And then, I had a few conversations with Nathan, and he was saying how approaching, the next year there's gonna be gaming houses, etc. And we were speaking roughly about what the rosters were going to be like. And so I wasn't actually involved in the early stages of the recruitment process because I wasn't really committed to coaching at that point. And I hadn't fully decided that I was going to commit to Direwolves or not. I was kind of just, I was a bit hesitant. But I did end up having a significant input as we were finalizing the roster. So I can give you a bit of an insight as to how we built the roster, from the information I have from Rippy and other management at the time. Well, basically, based off the performance of the OPL 2016 Split 2, considering Direwolves had no gaming house, we had very little infrastructure or coaching structure at all, and compared to Legacy and Chiefs, who both had gaming houses, as well as a better infrastructure than Direwolves, the roster nearly finished first in the split. They didn't end up doing so well in finals, but yeah, the actual regular split performance was decent. And from that, it was decided that the core roster, which was at the time Fantix, Sybol, and Chippies, were detrimental in maintaining that performance. And as a side note to that, at Direwolves, we really feel like development is a large part of our culture. and that keeping these, these core players, or it was really fundamental in order for us to have success, and developing these players such as, Richard, who's been with Dials for a long time, and, Sybol, who's been with Dials for a long time, and Chibius, and really furthering developing these players and creating them, and under my coaching, turn them into world-class players. And from that, it was obvious that we had a superstar AD carry at the time. It was Radia. And to fill that gap, that occurred because Radia moved on, we really needed, quote, like a superstar AD carry. And, the first person that came to mind was King, obviously, because he has the reputation, of being such a dominant AD carry in the OPL, as well as him having familiar ties with the Direwolves organization. Like he used to play with us back when I was mid as well, and top. So, yeah, I think that really helped, him having that connection with Direwolves as an organization allowed him to feel confident and trust that we would look after him. Right. The last spot was Destiny. So Destiny was like the last piece of the puzzle. So we needed someone that not only gelled well with King in the bot lane, but someone who had an idea and was able to kind of take over the leadership role and do a lot of the shot calling. At the time, we thought that Destiny was going to be the main shot caller. It's not really that anymore, but at the time, he really, really fit the team well in that aspect, where it was like, okay, we have superstar AD carry, now we need a veteran type support. I'm not saying he's a crazy veteran, but yeah, like he really fit the criteria that we had at that point. So we ended up putting that team together and worked out really well.
I wanted to ask, so you obviously transitioned from a player to no longer being a player and being more or less out of the scene. Was there like a turning point where you said, no, I want to, defer life for a bit, defer university, that sort of stuff? Obviously moving from Melbourne to Sydney, was there like a turning point where you said, yeah, I do want to start coaching? Because obviously it was a transition for you.
Yeah, it was quite strange, because at the time when I moved on from Direwolves at the end of Split 1, there was never an intention that I was going to be coming back to esports. So I thought that was that one part of my life, and then I'm going to move on from that and follow a more, traditional type life. And, as kind of time progressed and I saw I was always close with Nathan, or Rippy, and he's always been a close friend of mine, and we've been at the start. We were together creating Direwolves from the start. Yeah, and so he was always giving me updates saying, we've got this sponsor, we've got this, we've talking with these sponsors, we've got Gaming House up on the line next year. We have these people that are contacting me. At the time that Direwolves wasn't associated with Guinevere Capital, so he was giving me a little bit of insight into what Guinevere Capital were going to bring to the organization. So it wasn't like an instant, like, all right, I want to get back in esports. It was kind of like a gradual, like dwelling. How do I see myself? How do I see myself getting back into Direwolves? And what can I bring to the organization that will further their success? I never wanted to be part of Direwolves if I was just going to be kind of carried along. So yeah, it was a lot of dwelling, a lot of thinking, and yeah, it was a very tough decision, like a very, very tough decision. Quitting my job and deferring uni and leaving my family and friends behind wasn't easy. So, but I definitely don't regret it. Like the experience that I've had at Direwolves has been life-changing, really, and at the time I thought it was just going to be a short period of time and possibly returning back to university, but at this point I don't see any return. I'm just fully committed to Direwolves and furthering us and growing together with the scene.
Right. Well, it's really good to hear that it worked out for you. I guess a question which I wanted to touch on is, you mentioned that you talked about Sybol being a key part of the team in Split 2 of 2016. So obviously Shernfire does come into the scene or come into the OPL. I can't remember what week it was. But what was the relationship like for you and for the team with Sybol? And was the intention always to part ways with him? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this is like a question that comes up quite a bit. So everyone's relationship, I'll be clear that everyone's relationship with Sybol was extremely good. Everyone got along really well with Sybol. Like, we've always been really close, especially me and people like Richard and Chippies and yeah, everyone on the team like were really, really close with Sybol. There was the relationships within the team were nothing to do with why Sybol decided to part ways and why we decided to part ways. So I'll give you a bit of insight into that. So the Sybol Shernfire situation was based. The reason it didn't work was really based around the fact that the structure of the double jungle system was not working for us. And as a part of like Direwolves, we really are looking to be an innovative and creative organization, always striving for the next best thing and always looking to be creative and be on top of what's going on. And the double jungle system was just a huge learning experience for us, and it was partly management's fault that like we weren't able to properly utilize the system, and we were nowhere by any means able to get the full potential out of the roster, out of both players, sorry. And it was a very difficult decision as both players were so skilled, but just the double jungle system was just very poorly implemented by management, and we did not know how to deal and equally distribute practice time and utilize having two junglers to maximize efficiency. It just did not work in that way. And it was really quite a shame because everyone in the organization loved Sybol and he got along really well with the players. It was just the downside of being innovative sometimes, I guess.
Right. I guess actually that's a question kind of for you as well, Nick. Because I mean, for me, when I look at Sybol and Shernfire, like Sybol, obviously one of the best junglers in the OPL for a long time, and like you said, you got along with him really well. But I think for me, Shernfire is kind of the best jungler that I've ever seen play in the OPL, right? So I guess like, is there ever a reason to keep Sybol along when you have like, and he is one of the best junglers in the OPL, and he is bound to get another team. Like, he ended up on AV like almost immediately afterwards, right? Like, they removed their jungler. But is there ever a reason to keep Sybol on when you've got a significantly better player? Like, what's sort of the mindset? Like, did you think that Sybol had the potential in him to get up to that level, or? Yeah. I guess for both, like, in terms of Nick, just asking, like, is there ever, like, if you see, and perhaps Nick disagrees with me, is maybe he thinks that Sybol is as good as Shernfire, but is there ever a reason to keep on another player?
There's definitely something to say about, like, playstyle. Like, from from watching Shernfire, like, he's a very cerebral sort of player, and he tracks enemy jungler extremely well, whereas Sybil's more around getting ganks in and playing more aggressively. Like, if you watch Sybol on AV, it's a very much like he's trying to get ganks off. You watch Shernfire, he's trying to track the enemy jungle. So there is something to say, in my opinion, about like the playstyle difference, and you may want to keep that around. But in my opinion, yeah, I thought you did make the correct decision in going with Shernfire full time, because I mean it worked out. Like, you guys finished first, so yeah.
Yeah, to touch on that, the whole goal of the double jungle system was to both further each player individually, and then from the ability having like to discuss and theory craft new and innovative approaches to the whole jungle, the whole way you approach jungle. We were hoping that the system was going to further increase both Shern and Sybil's skill. And what happened, it wasn't really a means by, like, it wasn't really increasing the performance of either jungler. It was kind of limiting both junglers. So, and as you're saying, like, is it worth keeping a jungler who may not be up to the standard? But I agree with General in the sense that Sybol did have a quite early gank play style, as you say. And I thought that both Shern could learn off Sybol and Sybol could learn off Shern. And yeah, it's just, I guess, poorly implemented by management.
I think so from my time with Abyss as a jungler, I role swap from mid to jungle, and something that helped me out a lot was Abyss White's jungler, like a sister team. Talking to the other jungler, Mr. Monkey has left the scene now, but talking to him about jungling and what do you think, especially when you're scrimming against each other, is like, oh, I went and did this in this part of the game. What do you think of that? And it really helps facilitate your your ability to get better and to improve. But I think what you're getting at is just like that conversation isn't necessarily as important as being able to dedicate 100% of scrims to one player. Like, I remember like scrimming against Idols, it'd be like one game Shernfire, next game Sybol, one game Shernfire, 2 games Shernfire, 1 game Sybol. It was like a lot of mix and matching, and I could understand from a management and a player perspective that it is quite difficult to manage, and yeah, especially with jungle, because it's such a team reliant role. I thought it was a really good idea, especially just like, being able to improve, because jungle is such a cerebral role. I thought it was going to be a good idea. It's just, I think it is obviously really hard to figure out how things are actually going to go until you're actually doing it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'll move a little bit away from the players that you're coaching, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about yourself and your own personal style. So, how would you describe your own coaching style? Are you quite an authoritative figure? Are you quite a somebody that likes to collaborate all the opinions of players? How do you interact with the team?
All right, so yeah, this is like a very multifaceted question. So I'll kind of start off by saying that I would say my style of coaching has evolved rapidly. I mean, extremely rapidly from the beginning of the split to now. So, like, I'll give you a bit of background. I've done a lot of study on coaching, along with our performance director, Jonathan Brown. He's given me a lot of insight as to why specific styles of coaching may benefit specific situations and etc. So he linked me to this article, and it kind of talks about how styles of coaching can be gauged in a sense using a similar concept to this thing called Blake Morton managerial grid. So it's where a coach or manager's approach depends on their level of concern for both the performance versus the concern for the player's well-being. So like I've been recently trying to gauge where am I on this scale, and from this I could see that my respect and care for the players has been allowing me to have such a great form of trust between myself and everyone on the team, and my healthy levels of concern for both the performance and the well-being of the players has made me such an effective coach in doubles. And so from this, I'll also say that coaching styles shouldn't be ever fixed. So there's a ranging number of like factors as to why coaching styles shouldn't be fixed. So for example, the organization's prevailing cultures and attitudes and values could be a huge factor as to why a specific coach might act a certain way. For example, the values and the culture that we have at Direwolves may be completely and utterly different to the culture that, let's say, Red Side may have in their organization. Not to say theirs is bad by any means. I'm just saying that we have we're really working hard to develop a culture and value system, as well as the personality of the coach. Every coach is going to be different, and assessing a situation differently based on their own personal experiences in life. And you can also say the situation of the team during the split or during the year can be hugely indicative of how they approach the team. So, a team at the top of the table they might be extremely chill about their coaching because they're so confident that they're going to get first. But whereas a coach in the bottom of the ladder, they're like, oh man, like I gotta be stricter because we gotta catch up to these teams. So, in saying that, I really, really do think that there's no one way of coaching teams. I don't think it should ever be fixed either. So even me, like my role as a coach and the way I approach coaching has changed. Like right now, since it's off season, it's going to change rapidly to what it will be towards final time. And that actually leads me to the point that Coma, you know how a lot of people say, Coma, the greatest coach in esports history, his style of coaching it may not work at all for an NA or OS team. Just straight up.
Right.
Because there could be cultural differences, organization values and differences in that sense, personality differences and his relationship with the players are going to be completely different. There's no one way of defining a coach's most optimal way of like getting across what they need to say. Like there's no one optimal way of coaching. So, like I would say my style is very heavily based on reliant on the trust and the care and respect that we give each other. And through that, I'm able to enhance my team's learning.
Okay. Yeah, that was a really good answer. Like I think I think it sounds like what's the company which is supporting Dials? Like I can never pronounce their name properly.
Guinevere Capital.
Yeah, it sounds like they provided like a lot of support for you. Like you said, they're showing you like some very professional things, to help you improve your coaching. So, yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. Okay, I guess the final topic for this, building the team and coaching it's talking a little bit about the boot camp that you guys had in Korea, at the beginning of the year. So I guess I kind of want to ask you, like, pretty much just have you tell me a little bit about your time in Korea. Like, what was it like living there? Like, what was the scrimming like? Did you get any like particularly interesting scrims? Did you like get to play solo queue yourself? Because obviously you are a high ranked player. Like, yeah, tell us a bit about your experience over there.
So I wasn't with the team during the Korean Bootcamp for the whole time. I was only there for the last part of it. So I actually wasn't present for the scrims that they did have. Because at the time, I actually wasn't the official coach of Direwolves. I was still weighing up whether I was going to coach. And the funny story was that I just happened to be in Korea at the time with my girlfriend. So I just took a train from Seoul to Busan where they were boot camping and then said hello to them and ended up staying there for a few days. So, but I did ask a lot and watched a bit of VODs from their scrim footage. So Direwolves, we had a chance to scrim Echo Fox, Immortals, Isurus, and Envious. They were all over there at that time boot camping.
Wow.
Yeah, so the scrims that I did watch, our macro gameplay then was so poor. Like, we had nearly zero idea of how to play the game in terms of macro. So the individual difference wasn't that large but it was very evident at the time that Dardoch was dominant and had a lot of dominance over Sybol in the jungle at that point in time. But the scrims were kind of they weren't really the main part of the boot camp. So I felt everyone agreed that the part of the boot camp that they got the most learning from was actually the solo queue itself. So we have a theory, or we have an opinion about Korean solo queue. So we actually believe that at a high level, the high ranking Korean solo queue, the games are much like scrims. So you could get a team of the 5 best solo queue players in Korea. So let's just say you have the 5 best solo queue players in their role, and make a team out of them, and they've never played competitive before, right? You will put them against a top team in, say, a top NA team, or even like us. They would annihilate us, even if they have zero competitive experience, because the games are so close to competitive. The concepts such as trading sides of the map, looking for dives, like deep vision, like all these rotations and ability to back off when the other person's trading sides, like this is all ingrained in Korean solo queue, which is the large reason as to why so many people go over there to play. And that's where a lot of the players really, really thrived, and they love to learn from just the solo queue itself. So and to your other question, that if I played solo queue, so I played a bit of solo queue while I was over there. I think I was playing in Diamond. I was playing in like mid to high Diamond. I think I was playing in like Diamond 1 at the time. And the Diamond 1 was extremely difficult. Like I got top 10 in Oceania and I was struggling in Diamond 1. I ended up
Right.
playing games in Master Tier and stuff, and it was pretty intense. But yeah, I think the best player I versed mid, I versed Godv, and it was pretty fun. But yeah, the solo queue is on another level. It is extremely difficult.
Why do you think there's such a I've never played Korean solo queue. Why do you think there is such like a discrepancy between like O solo queue? Because as someone that has played a fair amount of O solo queue, especially in the high levels, like there is a what's the difference? Like, is it an attitude difference? Is it like a player's skill? Is it a combination of what is about it that thinks that you think it makes it more like a professional game?
Yeah, so the number one factor as to why solo queue is different is because of the attitude that they have. So that comes from culture, the elitism culture. It's ingrained in their actual culture. So when they approach solo queue, it is extremely competitive, and they are always constantly pushing themselves to limits that other regions just simply don't. So it's their attitude towards solo queue and towards learning and improving is what is impressive. In Oceania, there is players who can get high ranking in Challenger who are just playing the game casually and really are giving it a half-ass attempt. And I can speak for myself. I can casually play as a coach. I can casually play Oceanic solo queue and win games, but you just cannot simply do that because you get punished for the smallest mistakes. And it really does come down to their attitude in game and how they approach solo queue. It's not just a fun thing that you play casually. It's you play to win. You play to improve and get a high ranking. And I just feel like we don't have that attitude and culture in Australia. And even in other Western cultures.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the whole bootcamp just sounds really awesome. Like getting to go out to Korea. I mean, like you said, you're already out there. Wait, did you just like leave your girlfriend? Just just
Yeah,
hop on a train. Like you'll be fine.
No, like I said, I visit them while they were in Busan because I wanted to check out Busan as well. So I checked out Busan and it was a pretty cool place. But yeah, I just went for a few days. I think I was only there for like 6 days.
Right.
And then went back to Seoul.
I wanted to ask, so were you in the scene when Jishqueue became a thing? Do you know what that is?
Yeah, so I was quit at the time.
Mhm.
I quit at the time, but I know of it, yeah.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Jishqueue was something made by Jish, the previous head coach of Chiefs, and then later became an assistant coach of Immortals, and right now is looking for a team, I believe. But basically, when he was in OS and with the Chiefs, there was a lot of complaints around the solo queue, mirroring the things that Sharp was saying about the lack of competitive drive in the solo queue and how there were a lot of like one-trick ponies and how people weren't taking it seriously and flaming, that sort of stuff. And so what Jish decided to do was make this system of in-house games. So basically, what it started as was only OPL players were allowed to play, and it would happen. This was before the whole LAN tournament sort of system. It was still when OPL was online, so there would be Jishqueue games going on after scrims, so around 10 p.m. Before scrims, around 5 p.m. And initially, I think it was going quite well. However, what I think happened was OCS players were allowed to enter, and this is the time that I was on Trident, so I was an OCS player, so I got to play in the Jishqueues, and then definitely like the quality of the game started dropping as OCS players were going in, just because they're weaker than OPL, and then they started like allowing in high level solo queue players, and then eventually the whole system just became like, alright, so pretty much everyone in Challenger can play Jishqueue now. then the whole system just collapsed and everyone started playing solo queue. And I wanted to ask, do you think there is a place for in-house games? Do you think it's a good idea? Because every single time that I've heard it occurring in other regions, it just quickly just dies just because of like laziness, or there's just something that happens to in-house games that makes it.
I mean, you don't
no longer work. Here you go, Scott.
You don't in LP as well either. That's another thing to mention.
Yeah, there's no
like
LP.
people love winning LP, right? Like
Yeah.
people love getting rank 1. They love climbing up the ranks. Like I get screenshots from people like, oh, I hit 1,000 LP. Like in Jishqueue, you don't earn 1,000 LP, right?
Yeah. But like if it's
yeah.
if OPL is becoming more and more serious, and like at least the way that that you're describing solo queue and OS, it seems like more or less like just a less efficient way of practicing significantly. So how would you feel about in-house games in OS at the moment?
Yeah, I really like how people have recognized the fact that the quality of solo queue is so poor. I think that's the first step, really, is that we have to kind of look for ways to compensate for our lack of infrastructure and level of skill in our region, since we're so isolated. I think where that actually stems from is that we have an extremely low player base. So I'll touch on this later, talking about MSI, but the sheer number of players in some of these regions, like EU West and this Turkish, where the Turkey teams play on, the solo queue is just highly populated. So there's obviously going to be a larger amount of super talented players. But yeah, touching back on the Jishqueue, I reckon it definitely has a place. Like it definitely has a place, but it's just coming up with the proper structure and format for it, and having a strict set of rules and regulations that stop particular players from coming in. So maybe if they had this queue specifically for the OPL teams, but then again you got to think about how is the new up and coming talent going to come in? Like how is anyone else going to come in and improve? And then when we retire, then it's just going to decline again. So there is a lot of issues with it. It's just whether someone can properly utilize that system and then come up with a strategy to help everyone grow together.
Yeah, because that was like one of the main issues. Just like, all right, so some person rises up. Like there are a lot of up and coming players in the OCS or even high ranking solo queue players. Like Kedu from Regicide just like shot up really quickly. I've never seen it before. He just shot up like top 10 solo queue, and in like a Jishqueue sort of scenario, he would never get noticed. Like he may get rank 1, but everyone's like, oh, he's not playing in Jishqueue. Like who cares about him? Then he's not going to get scouted, and it is just a very difficult thing, and I think it's just one of the reasons why OS isn't necessarily going to be competitive, like when it comes to Korea or China or those sort of regions, just because of the quality of the solo queue doesn't actually create the best players, and it doesn't allow the best players to practice it in the most optimal way.
I mean, I suppose like one, solution for something which you mentioned is you said that there were like way too many people being let in, right?
Yeah.
To the Jishqueue. Like because
Like
Jish
me.
was coaching Chiefs at the time, right? So he was obviously quite busy. But I mean, if somebody was like fully dedicating their time to like monitoring the skill of players and like, letting people into the queue that were, up and coming talents. Like, yeah, there's tons of OCS players, which I think could be, good enough to perform in that queue, right? Like, I think one jungler like Pralus, for example, I think he's gonna have a really good OCS split. And there's like a lot of players which are up and coming. Like, but if somebody was able to manage, the players that were being let in, then I suppose that's something which could, yeah. But I mean, who has the time to do that, right? But perhaps something which the OPL teams could, I guess, collaborate on. Because I mean, having all that talent being scouted for them could potentially be something useful. Maybe as the scene develops and grows, maybe that's an option they could look into. Because, yeah, obviously we won't have the same sheer number of players, but so we have to manage our resources a lot better as a region, right? if we want to do well. All right, so I guess we'll move on to the next topic. Welcome back, Nick. We'll move on to the next topic. So split one of OPL is the next topic. So we're just going to go through, just general questions about how OPL split one went for you, and whether you were happy with the regular split and then playoffs, and yeah, just go through that. So I just want to start off by asking, you briefly touched on moving into the houses and stuff before, but how, were you a big fan of all of the new OPL changes, moving teams into houses, placing games at the studio? Was that something that you were a big fan of?
Yeah. Previously, since I've only ever been in the scene where there hasn't been any gaming houses, I think it's the obvious first step to take in order for us to grow. And I think gaming houses are absolutely crucial. Like, they are the number one necessity for our scene to grow. It was the number one necessity for our scene to grow. The other problem now, it's like the problems now stem with utilizing the gaming house. So everyone has a gaming house now, and it's kind of becoming a thing where it's not really recognized as a necessity anymore. We need to start focusing our attention into proper structure and proper management and coaching staff and coming up with ways to utilize this gaming house. We have such a great opportunity, having a whole team in a house, that we need to start. Yeah, that for me, that's the biggest problem. But yeah, I think OPL changing its format, having gaming houses, was the best thing that ever could have happened.
Right.
How was it? How was a coach? So I started doing coaching online, and then transitioning briefly into the live format. It's living at a house is really intense, I guess. If your scrims aren't going well, or there are mistakes and stuff like that, it can be quite confronting in the gaming house scenario, as opposed to just for instance, us sitting at home, we're scrimming together as a team. Scott goes 0-15 on Lee Sin jungle. If we have an argument and I say that Scott's a terrible player and I want him off the team, we can just all leave. I can just go over there. Scott can leave, and Sharp, you can also leave. But in the gaming house, if we're all living together, those scenarios, if I just say, Scott, I'll off you off the team, or those sort of stuff, I can't just go away. Scott's sitting right next to me. What do you think is the main differences in the coaching style that you need to have when it comes to online, as well as compared to online and the gaming house sort of scenario?
I don't have a huge amount of insight into being a coach online, since the only time I've been a coach was during the house. But from the way I have been studying and learning and improving as a coach, it seems nearly impossible to be a good coach online. I think it nearly is impossible. I honestly believe that you can't really call yourself a coach if you're coaching remotely anymore, because you would have to change your title, honestly, because the only insight that a coach would bring is purely in game, right? You're only purely bringing in your expertise on macro and how to play the game. There is nothing that you can do outside of the game to increase the performance of your players. So I feel that as a coach, it is actually more important to focus on the external problems and the external issues revolving around the players and learning, rather than the in-game. So I have a very extensive knowledge. I have a very extensive knowledge about the game and macro and how the game should be played. But that's not really where I've been putting my time. I've really, really been putting my time on really focusing on how to become a coach and lead my team, and find out and experiment with ways in which how to learn together and deal with conflict. So as you were saying before, if conflict arises online, you can just walk out. I can just put my headset down and walk away, and I won't have to deal with any shit that's being said. But in the house, it is absolutely paramount that you come up with systems that allow you to deal with conflict. This honestly comes back to Direwolves, how we really value having a structure and a way of specifically dealing with conflict, right down to the way we converse with each other. So conflict is unavoidable in a gaming house. It is absolutely unavoidable. You're in a high stress environment. You've got people in the house that have varying opinions on things, and it is the jobs coach. Just from my perspective, it is the job of the coach. The duty of the coach to deal with this conflict and come up with ways to positively resolve these issues and then learn from it. And conflict is just natural. It's gonna be in every single house, and it's gonna be in every environment, in every room. Like, there's no escaping it. Especially in our house, it's not overly large. We have probably the most minimum space possible, but conflict really does. It really comes down to the responsibility of the coach and his ability to lead and be a leader, and start taking responsibility to lead conversation to deal with the conflicts. And I feel like that is something that is it's not even touched upon. No one talks about how to deal with conflicts. People just say, oh yeah, conflict, okay, let's just sit there and eventually it'll go away, or we can address it. But no one really addresses or talks about the ways in which you should focus on, or like the ways in which you can deal with conflict and then learn from it and then come up with systems to deal with it in the future. Yeah, Direwolves is something we've really been focusing on, and especially heading into second split, we're coming up with with very, very strict schedules and pretty much codifying every part of our discussion, coming up with ways to structure it, and then in turn improve our ways of dealing with conflicts.
I mean, conflict is inherently productive as well, right? When it comes to a team environment, like when you have conflict between two players that comes to a resolution, provided it's not like the kind of conflict which Nick said, where you're just like, I want that guy off the team, I don't want to play with him anymore. And the other end of the scale being that if you just dodge conflict all the time, conflict isn't inherently productive. So you need to turn those differences in opinions, those differences in personalities into getting better at the game. So yeah, I think that's a really important part, because I actually coached Abyss remotely from week 7, so after they played XL5, and that was a huge issue for me, especially doing it remotely. It was an absolute nightmare trying to resolve conflict between players, because I'm sitting in New Zealand and they're all sat next to each other in the house. So I even when it was remote before, when it was remote before, you could drag somebody else to another TeamSpeak channel, but you can't do that when they're sat next to each other, because if you drag them to a TeamSpeak channel, everyone's still going to hear. So it actually kind of got harder remote coaching whenever I moved into the houses. So yeah, I think that's a really key part of coaching. So it's really good to get some insight on what the Direwolves is doing about that. Okay, so during the first half of the split for Direwolves, you guys would drop the series to both Chiefs and Legacy. Did this make you guys quite nervous going into the rest of the split at all? Did you guys think that either of those teams could have potentially been better than you, or potentially take the split away? What was your guys' thoughts after those losses?
Yeah, so there's a few points I'll actually talk about for the reason we lost those games, and then how we kind of felt. So for starters, we were extremely confident coming off the back of the Korean Bootcamp, but it was not just the confidence in our individual skill. It was kind of we had confidence in our ability to improve. So I'll start off by saying the losses to both Chiefs and Legacy were both early in the split. I believe the loss to Chiefs was in week 1, and the loss to Legacy was in week 4. So what actually happened? What were the common factors, or the common, why things that were very common in between during those 4 weeks were, 1, they were both early in the split. 2, we were using the double jungle system for all those first 4 weeks, so which that obviously wasn't working. And I was new to coaching. I'd only been a coach then for a month, just over a month. It was really little. And I was new to the whole drafting. I was terrible at drafting, coaching. I was still trying to grasp the meta and how to approach learning. And there were just between all those factors, we weren't really fussed because we knew after, I think it was week 5, our level of play skyrocketed. We turned from a subpar team that was could maybe win a best of 5, could go even in a best of 5, maybe lose against Chiefs Legacy in a best of 5, to just completely dominate over the next course of the 5 weeks. So this was due to we started working harder. We actually took up a 3rd scrim set, so we would do 3 scrim sets a day. We're working harder than anyone else. We got rid of the double jungle system, and then we parted ways with Sybol. I became a infinitely better coach, and we started dominating scrims, and then we started having scrim dominance, and that gave us confidence. And then we saw how much we improved, and we just felt like we're unstoppable, purely because I don't think we dropped we dropped one game. We dropped one game, I think, from after week 5 to the end of the final. The only game we lost was 1 game to Legacy, I believe. Right. So it was after the Sin game, after the Sin set, we lost. Yeah, we only dropped 1 game and that was to Legacy in the grand final. So we had an insane scrim record as well. Like, our scrim record heading into the grand final against Legacy was something ridiculous. It was like 50 wins, 4 losses. Like, we just never lost, ever. And we would play things that weren't even... The comps that we played weren't even serious comps. Half the time we would kind of we'd try to learn new champions and stuff, and we still just won. We were just so dominant. And that came down to us believing in our preparation, believing in our learning, and ability to just learn faster than every other team. I think that was highly underestimated, and everyone underestimated Doubles, especially because we lost the 2 games. And we're like, okay, yeah, you can look at those losses to Legacy and Chiefs. And actually, touching back on that, their losses early in the split, I would say both of those losses, despite having the double jungle system, I lost both of those games off draft. I lost the game for my teams off draft. So, one, the game against Chiefs, the set against Chiefs, I drafted I drafted the same comp 3 games in a row in a set of 3, which is absolutely disgraceful. And then the set against Legacy, I did not adapt well to the Lucian Braum, and then that actually became evident that was Legacy's strongest pick. And we were behind on the Ivan meta in that sense, so we gave them Ivan, and they had Lucian Braum, and we just did... That was all my fault. I just was not prepared enough and I wasn't able to adapt in between games. So then that just tells everyone kind of how strong our roster really was with terrible drafts. And we ended up taking a game against them, and the 3rd game in the Legacy split was in that set. Sorry, was actually really close. So we were not fussed whatsoever about those losses, and we were just so confident and believed in our preparation. And heading into the grand final, actually, we thought we were going to 3-0. We were a bit disappointed with the 3-1, but the 1 game after we lost, I was just like, okay, this didn't work. This is what worked for them. Ban it. Next game, stomp. And it was just like, all right, like, we were not worried whatsoever.
I love that. Oh man, we were so disappointed you won the 3-1 in the finals. Like, no dinner for the players tonight. Like, I love that. Yeah, because I mean, I did predict Direwolves to 3-1 the finals against Legacy. Admittedly, I also predicted Chiefs to 3-0 Sin, so maybe
Yeah.
maybe not so good at the predictions. But yeah, because I mean, for the second half of the split, you guys didn't really face because Chiefs obviously all got banned, which was like the other really hyped up
Yeah.
matchup for you guys. So it was kind of difficult for me, like gauging how strong you guys were, from a spectator point of view, because you never played against the either of the top two teams, right?
Mm.
For the rest of the split. But were you guys just really confident, like based on that scrim record and based on
Yeah.
your internal, like you weren't bothered at all that you never played them competitively?
We really do believe that preparation ultimately comes down from scrims, right? So there are scrims
Right.
in which we are going to directly practice what we're going to implement in the finals game. So there was times where we scrimmed against teams and we actually practiced right from the level one exactly what we were going to do on stage, and we were able to implement it. I believe it was game one against Legacy. We played Ivan, and we first picked Ivan, and then I got the draft. I predicted the draft identical. I predicted their drafts every game, and we did the trading sides of the map. Ivan did the dive, and it didn't work too well. Like I think Ivan died, but it just cemented the bot dominance. And then we had put ourselves in that situation so many times in scrims that we just felt as though it was not possible to lose that game. We heavily believe in preparation from scrims. There's, there's a lot of teams, not going to name names, but they take scrims they might not take scrims as seriously as we do, but scrims ultimately are your only form of valid practice. Like, solo queue isn't really practice, and scrims is the only chance you're actually gonna practice. So we just spammed scrims, and we did the 3 sets a day, so like 9 games a day, which is insane hours. And we just believed that we worked harder than everyone else, and the results just showed.
Right. I actually have a question for both of you coming up. So you talked about how you were maybe not completely happy with the 3-1 in the finals, but you won the split. You're confident you won the split. The Gauntlet system. So you guys only actually got played one series in the playoffs. So I want to ask both of you, what did you guys think of the Gauntlet system? Having it happened quite a while ago now. So what did you guys think of the Gauntlet system first time it was tried, the split? Do you think it's a good system? Do you think they should keep it? I guess either of you, because I'll start with Shop. Well, then we'll do Nick.
Yeah. At first, I was a bit hesitant or a bit dubious about how the Gauntlet system how effective it was gonna be. But as the season or the split went on, I kind of dwelled on it more, and I was thinking, this really does work in the sense that each team has a greater incentive to come first. And I really like that. It kind of increases the competitive nature of the split, because everyone's like, oh, great, I want to come first, because then you have such an advantage in the finals. Like, we were able to watch teams in best of 5 series battle it off to kind of a 5th game. So they're going to show everything in their wheelhouse. They're going to, these teams are going to have to pull out every pick if they want to make it just to the grand final. So we have first-hand experience about how great it is coming first. So in that sense, increasing the competitiveness of the split, I really do like it. And as well, not just increasing the competitiveness of the split, but it also adds a wildcard thing where the 5th place team can potentially verse us in the grand final. And as we saw, Sin come through from 5th place and nearly took 1 game away from taking the series off Legacy, and they could have potentially been versing us in the grand final. So yeah, that's just another thing as to why Gauntlet's great.
Yeah. My opinion on the Gauntlet is that I really like the fact that it makes it top 5. That goes into a playoff situation, especially because at least in the regular season, Sin and AV were very close in skill levels as teams, and if it was just AV finished 4th, so if it was just AV comes in and they just get the free seed into playoffs and have to play Sin, it sort of seems crap from a spectator perspective because you really want to see who is actually better between Sin and AV. So that's something I really like, and as well as from touching on what Sharp was saying was it makes regular season games so much more important, and also means because of the whole 3-point system, like getting the 2-0 for the 3 points is super important. Like the whole the reason why you guys made first is just like 2-0 to BIS, 2-0 to AV, 2-0 to TM, 2-0 to Chase, 2-0 to XL5, and all of a sudden that's like 15 points. And then everyone else is just like taking 2-1, that sort of stuff. It makes every game like really important. Like if XL5, which was like very very bad, was playing against like AV or Sin, it was like Sin and AV need to 2-0 this game in order to keep their playoff hopes alive, and it makes the game so much more exciting than like, all right, you go if you're doing a best of 3, Sin are never going to lose to XL5, but like they might lose one game, but it's like a whole, they'll just adapt, maybe XL5 says some cheese strategy, whatever. They'll adapt whatever, but like the whole one game thing makes it more important. And I mean, like, it was just great watching the Gauntlet from a spectator's perspective, just like watching Sin make it through. Like they beat AV, was like such a tight series. And they beat Chiefs, and it's just like, what the hell is going on? They take Legacy to 5 games, and just because that happened in like 3 days, it makes it like so much more hype. But the issue I do have with it is like, Sin had to play 15 games in 3 days. That's not necessarily the best for like competitive integrity. Just like the amount of fatigue that's going to happen. Like a best of 5 is a very long thing, and concentrating for like 5 to 6 hours straight is very mentally fatiguing. That to do that for 3 days, there are questions about like the whole competitive integrity, but like next split, if they took away the Gauntlet system, I'd be sad. So I'm happy they're sticking with it.
I think it divided up really well, the split as well, right? Because after Sin and AV, you had like Abyss, TN Mines, XL5, and I feel like the gap between like Sin and AV, and then the gap between like Abyss, TM, XL5 was so big. I think the division worked out super well for playoffs the split. Yeah. Also, touching on the point you mentioned about points as well, like AV dropping games to like Abyss, to a bunch of other teams, because they went 6-4 in the regular split, and Sin went 5-5. But Sin actually finished in the place above them because of the point system. Because Sin picked up a lot more 2-0 victories. So that actually meant like they, losing side selection in that 5th game. Like you guys saw the 5th game, right? For Sin versus AV, the Fizz.
Yeah.
So like like
to watch.
It was sad to watch. Didn't he go like 15 and? It's like 15 and no at the end of the game, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous.
I mean, like that was a whole blue side advantage. Like they got the Fizz first pick off, and oh no, actually Sin. No, actually, I'm completely wrong. Sin finished 5th. Right? No.
Sin
finished 4th. I'm right.
Well,
Sin finished 4th, so they got the blue side advantage, and they could first pick the Fizz.
Yeah.
And that's sort of
Sin
like
finished
the whole
4th
reason
and
they won
AV finished 5th.
Game 5.
Oh really?
Yeah.
But I thought AV beat Sin in the last game, so they had.
Sin picked up a lot more points during the split because Sin went 5-5 and AV went 6-4. Yeah, it was quite misleading actually, because I thought, AV's ahead, and then I like looked at the points and I was like, wait a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I just want to kind of ask maybe 1 or 2 more questions on the split before we move on to the MSI topic. Drafting. So you mentioned before about how you were messing up drafts. Is drafts like entirely on your shoulders as a coach, or is it something you collaborate with the team with in Champion Select, or yeah?
Yeah. So this is how it kind of works. So I would review the scrims that we played throughout the week, and the things that I've been testing, and I'll kind of see, okay, what has been working, what hasn't been working, and then I'll come up and then I'll do my own research on the other team, and then kind of predict as to what style of comp they're going to play. So before we even get onto stage, I have quite a good idea about what we're going to play, because I'm very, I don't want to sound like up myself or anything, but I'm very, very good at predicting what the enemy team's going to draft. 95% of the time, I guess 3 bans and at least 4 of their picks. So I can generally get a good sense of what they're going to play. So then I come up with a basic draft. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to narrow it down to about, we'll probably play these 3 champions, maybe these one or 2 champions, and then maybe one of these 2. So when I go onto stage, I'll discuss I'll be like, okay, we're picking this. I'll say the reason. And then I was like, does anyone want to say otherwise? Like, does anyone have anything else to say? Like, do you guys agree? Is this all good? Lock it in. And then we'll go to the next few picks. And then they'll talk about, oh, like, okay, they picked those 2. Now, I think I'll say my opinion first. I'll say, I want to pick this and this. And then people will start chiming in. Okay, like Richard, for example, say, actually, I think this champ's better here. And then he'll talk to Stern, like, oh, is this all good with your jungle champ? And bang, lock it in. Like, so it's kind of like back and forth with the players and myself.
What happens in the scenario is like you say, I want to pick like Ivan here, and then Shernfire says, no, I think Elise is better. What would happen in that scenario? Because it's only 30 seconds. It's like quite limited.
Yeah. So that's only happened, I believe, once. That situation's okay, maybe twice. So one of the times, most of the time, I give the final say to the player because ultimately they're playing the champion. But it did happen once. I believe it was a very key pick as well. I believe it was in like a key series against, I can't remember, but it was Destiny's champion, and he wanted to play something like Nami or Thresh and something, and I said, you should pick Tom here. Like, Tom is like perfect here. And he's like, no, I want this. But I said, no, trust me, you'll play Tom. Tom will be like really good. And then he ended up picking Tom, and then he's like, after the game, he's like, oh, holy crap, Sharp. Like, thank God we picked Tom. It was like, and he ended up playing really well. And then like, you know, there's no strict guideline in that sense that whatever I say is going to go, but we have very deep discussions about draft in the team house and before games about what we're going to play. But yeah, like, it's kind of a bit of both. And in the scenario where it's 50-50, I generally give it to the players.
I mean, just coming back to the trust that you have in your players, right? If they feel confident in one champion and you have faith in your players, so you just have to pick it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the final question, which I want to ask about this one OPL, which I actually missed before. I probably should have asked this before when we were talking about the Gauntlet. Were you guys afraid at all about facing Sin in the finals? And I know this team, perhaps not the best team during the regular split, but like the incredible aggression that seemed to come out from their team during the Gauntlet, and just like they didn't really adhere to the rules. Like, they just sort of did their own thing. Like, was that a scary thing for you for you guys to face off against, or were you guys quite confident in being able to beat them?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll be really honest that we thought that Sin, or me, maybe not everyone, but me in particular, I thought that Sin were a better match. Well, actually would do better against us than Legacy. So I'll give you some insight to that. So Sin, as a team, they generally play around their top laner, right? Because Flares is like a carry top, like Direwolves. Like, Chippies versus Flares, it's always really competitive. Whereas Legacy, on the other hand, it's the way they play, they never really play through carry top laners, and we just have so many options in how we can play against Legacy. Like, I don't want to kind of say anything bad about Legacy or Soulstrike's drafts, but I just feel like Legacy are extremely one-dimensional when they play. Like, they always default to the same things. If you leave Lucian up, they'll pick Lucian. If you leave Braum, they'll always pick Braum. And they always default to, like, the Ivan comps. And they always play, like, this certain style of comp. They're, like, super predictable. Like, Claire wants to play like Victor every single game, and they're just super predictable. And, like, Sin, on the other hand, just had a better... They would actually have done better against us in the grand final because they can match our aggression through the top side of the map. They can match that really aggressive 2v2 style top where, you know, with Juves and Flares, they would play the Renekton Elise, and then whereas we would play similar, like we would play Camille and Graves and like things like that. And it really, really, yeah, they definitely would have done better than Legacy. Like, I can't say for sure, but in my eyes, from a draft standpoint, I reckon Sin would have fared a lot better. But we were never scared by any means. We were nowhere near scared of them. We were super confident in our ability. Whoever we versed, if it was Chiefs, Sin, or Legacy, I think it would have been a very similar result, 3-1 or 3-0.
Right, okay. Alrighty. Do you have any questions left for Shop on the OPL topic, Nick, or shall we move on to MSI?
Let's go into the MSI.
Alrighty. So, first question, which I'm gonna go through on MSI, is prior to you guys going to the tournament, Riot Oceania released a video with Shernfire being, extremely confident. Like, I think he said he's not scared of anybody but Korea. He's like, we can beat any team in this tournament but Korea. How representative of this was, if the whole team's attitude was this? And do you endorse this sort of thinking from your players? Because, I mean, obviously Shernfire is, quite known for making quite bold statements, was this something that the whole team was putting forward, or was it something which, just him?
Yeah, so it's, really easy to see how Shern and the team's confidence can come across as arrogance, but this is never, it's never meant to be like that. It was never the case. We definitely could have been more transparent over the reasons as why we're talking this way, but we never really clarified why we felt this way, which made us come across in an arrogant way. So I guess we were just incredibly confident in our preparation. We had such a dominant scrim record, and how convincingly we took the grand final over Legacy. I think one of the games we didn't even die once. We were just super confident in our preparation and how dominant the grand final was. But in saying that, Direwolves as an organization, we see confidence as a key part of performing well on stage. There's been a large effort in Direwolves to kind of promote confidence in our players, because on stage, the last thing you want is to be doubtful of your own skill or ability or the team's ability. You never want to go into a game thinking, okay, maybe this team is better. Or you always want to be going, okay, I firmly believe from the bottom of my heart I can win this game. And it's definitely, I can completely understand the public's point of view on how we can come across arrogantly, and I can completely understand that. I reckon that's something we're definitely going to be working on ways to be more transparent and be more transparent about why we feel these certain ways, why we feel so confident. And I think if we were more clear about why we're feeling so confident, I don't think people would have been so upset or offended really about us saying these things about the international tournament. Sorry.
Okay, so yeah, I mean the big thing for a lot of people watching, and I think I saw a small post on Reddit about this, was going into that tournament, the way that it was, I guess, put forward in the video was you guys are afraid, you guys are going to beat everybody at Korea, right? It's what it kind of sounded like. And then coming out of the group stage, 2 and 4, was this quite crushing for you guys? Because you say you have a lot of confidence, or how did the team take this result at the end of the group stage?
Yeah. So we were coming in hoping that we would have a pretty decent performance, at least making it out of the play-ins and having a decent run into groups. So I will be completely honest and say we definitely underestimated the individual skill of the players from these regions, like Brazil and Turkey, and obviously Gigabyte Marines and what's the other thing? Supermassive and Brazil. They definitely surprised us in that sense. So we were coming in thinking that we had such a strong individual roster and we had utter belief in our macro gameplay that we would have a fair shot. And what we actually found out is that, which, this actually might take a lot of people by surprise, is that we all agreed on the reasons we lost were purely individual. Well, 95% of the reason we lost. People couldn't fare up individually on the stage, and, we thought that was our strong point and ended up being our weakness. I think our macro game was the least of our worries. I think our macro game was actually better than a lot of the teams at the tournament, but we just weren't able to show it. So people would always, a lot of the comments online saying, "Oh, Direwolves, they don't know what a tower is. Or, look at their macro game." But the thing is, what no one takes into account is we can't play aggressively. We can't make any proactive or get any towers if we're getting dumpstered in lane. And it was just so evident. Like, I think I remember specifically when we were versing Supermassive, and then like Calvin and Destiny, and like struggling heavily in lane, and they lose first tower 2v2, and like no one being able to get solo kills, and people dying, people's mistakes coming out. It was just really, really, it really caught everyone by surprise, and it was extremely difficult to overcome that shock from day one, and then recoup, and be like, all right, we've got another day here. Let's give it our best shot. And it really, really was difficult. I'm not going to lie. Every player was having doubts about how good we were at that point. Like, how good are we? We came in having all these expectations and had a very disappointing day one. We lost to Brazil and Turkey that day one. Yeah, it was really tough. But we did. I'm very proud of the guys in the sense that we were able to recoup, give it our absolute best shot, and and have a crack on day 3. I actually want to kind of give a bit of context on the performance as well, and why we performed so poorly. So one large thing I kind of want to make clear is that Richard was extremely unwell during the tournament. Really, really unwell. He had severe jet lag, and then he had some personal health problems, and it amounted over the travel that we had to Brazil. It was ridiculous. We had like a 37-hour journey in total from Melbourne to Sydney to Brazil. It was just ridiculous. And Richard barely slept the whole time, and then couldn't sleep in Brazil, and he really, really struggled during the tournament, and it showed in his gameplay, and it was one of the large reasons, like, as to why he wasn't able to play to his standard, and it was quite sad to see. And even Richard's quite very, very disappointed in his own gameplay. He wasn't able to show the rest of the world what he really is capable of. And I'm not saying that I'm not here to say that if he was at his 100% best, we would have made it out, but it would have made a massive, massive difference. It is quite a shame, really.
Well,
do you agree with that, Nick? For the reasons why?
Individually?
Yeah, because I mean, we did the MSI show, and we kind of seem to have a bit of a different opinion,
yeah,
right?
I thought that Shernfire, like, when I was watching the MSI games, like, it was a map, like, I was watching them, and I was like, Shernfire is the real deal. Like, I thought he was the best jungler, in his group. Not better than Levi, but all of the games he performed really well. Like, he got a lot of early pressure off, and it seems to be in all of the games, like, was fumbling, and Shernfire would come in with a play. Like, on Gragas in the game we played against the Brazilian team.
Yeah, Brickkids, yeah.
Yeah. Like, he just came in with the Gragas, got a few team fight engages, and more or less carried a game that wasn't going too well. And then, in the other games, he got a few good ganks off. His Ivan pit play was very good in the game against the Japanese team.
Yeah.
And then, like, the game against the Brazilian team, the second round robin on the Graves, like, I thought he just, like, he, like, carried that game extremely well, and got Chippy's ahead and advantage when Chippy sort of, fell behind. But my overall, like, approach was that, like, I did think that you guys were not quite, the level of junglers in the OPL, I don't think is quite as good as it comes to internationally. Like, Shernfire is, like, I have this joke with Parbu that, like, S tier in jungle is just the Shernfire tier, and everyone else is, like, A tier. Like, the difference between Shernfire and the rest of the junglers in the OPL is, like, very, very large, and I didn't think that you guys were, like, as ready for some of the better junglers. Like, I remember in one of the games, like, the jungler just, like, level 3 and just, like, ganking all the time. No jungler in OS would play like that. They're not as aggressive, as proactive enough, but this guy just didn't give a single, like didn't care, and you're just going in for these ganks. So I think that
Yeah.
like coming into like it's a first international event. Like, I think it is good that if you said before like weeks 1 and 2, weeks 1 to 4 against Legacy and Chiefs, you guys lost and you learned from it and you became a very dominant team. Maybe this is sort of a similar type transition of first MSI, a few fumbles individually like Chippy's and the bot lane I thought was mostly the issues. Chippy's just playing very aggressive and your bot lane not being able to deal with like the immense 2v2 pressure. But coming into the next MSI, like hopefully you guys will learn from it and from talking to you and the way that you guys like in the proof of your results like you have. So yeah, I do agree with like it was an individual sort of thing, but I did think that Shernfire, and even though I didn't know that Fantix was sick, but I still thought Fantix played really well in a lot of the games, especially the games you won.
Yeah, I mean, for me as well, watching, I think some of the things which noted, like you mentioned the Supermassive game where the tower went down really early, but I just remember watching that and like because I watched all the games live, and I just remember watching it and thinking like, if I remember, they were playing like a really hard shove bot lane, right? And that was the no much way player, so they didn't really have to do a whole lot in order to like take the tower. Like they just sort of shoved the wave in, and it was like, oh, they can't really do a whole lot. And then like Destiny against Red Canids, like the Thresh, like me and Nick both thought perhaps like because there's not a whole lot of Thresh players in Oceania, right? Like you've got Rogue is probably, and then there's like Destiny. So I thought maybe like, players not used to playing against champions because like I mean Oceania is like primarily mage players, right? Like everyone's playing mages.
Yeah, but that it kind of comes back to though like these errors that were made were individual flaws that were present even in OS that we just didn't get rid of, like Destiny getting hit by unnecessary skill shots, Richard dying to like ganks that he should know about, Chibi's being overly aggressive when he should know about that. Like there's so many, and like I think it was like Calvin bad habit. He got his base stopped in that game versus Supermassive. If he got that base off, he did a really greedy base, and he got interrupted, and then he couldn't base, and then here was and then they ended up getting tower off it. Like really like small individual errors amounted to games that we lost. And like I look at different things to the spectator. Like it's kind of it's like the reasons I think we lost and we agree on why we lost is kind of not what the general person would see, because like it's very very small things that like really do lose you a game, and like and it was all these flaws and habits just got exposed. And it wasn't that when you think of individual skill, like individual skill isn't necessarily mechanics or trading in lane. Well, that is part of it, but a part of your individual being a complete player is not having significant weaknesses, and we just had too many significant weaknesses and habits in our gameplay, which just got completely exposed in nearly every game.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like you said, you're going to be looking out for a lot more things than we are, and I imagine you paid a heck of a lot more attention to the games than myself and Nick did. So no, it's really good to get some insight. I mean, we're watching, and it's like we're like wanting to make a show about it. We just want to know the general idea. Have some analysis, but like, if Direwolves loses for us, it's not like like for you, I'm guessing you really want to win, right? Like. Yeah. I assume you want to win, so yeah. Like I feel like maybe you're putting in a lot more thought into that. Okay, so I guess I wanted to. You already talked a little bit about Supermassive, but I wanted to ask you about some of the teams, like can I call them wildcard teams anymore? Is that like a taboo word now?
No.
Some of the other wildcard teams. I'm allowed to do it.
Yeah, go for it.
We're gonna get banned.
Stamp of approval.
All right, thanks. Some of the other like wildcard teams, like. Did any of them like really stand out to you? Like, did you get to scrim the Marines, for example?
We scrimmed. Yeah, we scrimmed a lot of the teams there. Not every team, but we scrimmed. So, yeah, we scrimmed Lion, I believe. Yeah, we scrimmed Lion. We scrimmed Gigabyte Marines, I think, but we only played them 2 games. So the funny thing is about Gigabyte Marines, it's actually quite like embarrassing, is that we had the choice of picking any team to scrim, and we kind of, like, from our watching VODs of the other regions, we kind of thought that Gigabyte Marines were just like average. We're just like, yeah, let's not like book too many scrims with them because we think we can get better scrims with other teams. So we ended up only scrimming like twice at the end of one day where we had already scrimmed like 10 games. We're like, yeah, they were like asking us for scrims. They're like really keen, and we're like, all right, it would be nice, and just chuck 2 games in, and then like we kind of were like half-ass attempted the scrims, and like we lost, but we were just like whatever. They weren't that good. It was just like we're tired, and then we scrimmed. Who else? Isurus quite a bit, and then we actually scrimmed the second Brazil team, the Keystars, and we had we had really good results, like really good scrim results while we were over there with the teams we versed. We had really good scrim results, which were really promising. We're like, oh wow, okay, maybe the gap isn't that big. And then obviously like the teams that we ended up versing were really good. And I would actually have to say that, you know, we got a little bit, you know, our group was definitely harder than the other group. But I'm not saying that like it's whatever because we would have had to beat those teams anyway. But I think Supermassive is an extremely good team, and I was actually very impressed by Gigabyte Marines beating them in a best of 5. I think Supermassive are a really clean and very, very well trained team. In saying that, I actually wanted to kind of like mention my thoughts about Gigabyte Marines. Their performance was so strange to me because they had such a well-defined way of playing the game that it wasn't necessarily the most optimal, but they were just so all on the same page that it just worked. They're all aggressive as 5. They're not aggressive as 3 or 4. They're aggressive as 5, and they're always on the same page. And I reckon that's why they had so much success. It's just like they had and it comes back to me my point before how trust is absolutely crucial. You know, like trust in the team, and they obviously have like insane amounts of trust with everyone on the team, and they were able to show that on the stage, and the way they play is super impressive. That just shows zero hesitation, and are really impressive. So you know, I think, and you know, with the Rift Rivals being announced, and we're going over to Vietnam and playing these teams, I reckon it'd be great for us, like us, Sin and Legacy, to get some experience against Gigabyte Marines because they're a really, really good team, and they are vastly contrast against the play styles in Oceania. So in Oceania, we've got this very, very, you know, we like to say we're proactive, but our version of proactive is not even remotely near Gigabyte Marines. We default to champions like Vladimir and like a lot of the teams play tanks top every game, and like Swiper and Tally like rarely ever play carry tops, and then we've got like very support orientated mid laners like Victors and Orianas all the time. We rarely ever see Talia and champs like and Fizz mid. We never see these type of things, and it's just the way, you know, Oceania are just we're very actually behind on the meta. I would actually have to say, like Flash Wolves, teams like Flash Wolves and Gigabyte Marines had such a better way of their read on the meta in their own region was just straight up better. Like these aggressive styles were just, they excel, and you know you can't afford to play comps with like an Ivan Vlad. You're limited really, and yeah, it kind of showed, I guess.
Yeah, we will actually talk a little bit more about Rift Rivals later on, as well. Just like a brief touch on it, because I was super excited to hear about that as well. Okay, I guess that the final thing, like, I mean, to start off with, I really liked the Gigabyte Marines as well because they were so fun to watch. Like 5 minutes into the game, there has already been a shitload of things happen. Like Levi, like they kind of reminded me of like a way better version of Sin, right? Like they just play aggressive all the time and make plays, and and it's actually, like you said, it's incredible that they developed that level of trust because apparently their team was like been together for like a month. Actually, I think some of their players have even left now, haven't they? I think I saw on Reddit like Slay and Stark have left. Like Yeah. So how do you build that level of trust so fast? It's pretty
It's just to be
insane.
natural,
Yeah.
I reckon.
Okay.
Mm.
You think it's natural?
Yeah, just like you can't like everyone just you just players naturally have play styles the way they think's the best, and they just maybe it's like some excellent coaching stuff, mega roster building, or we just like for whatever reason they all just had really good. They just all had the same idea of how the game should be played, to just seemingly always go for kills, no matter what. Just kill.
Yeah, kill.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, their rotations were not that like that. Oh, I wouldn't say they were good, but they were innovative,
I mean,
right? Like,
their whole mindset was kill first, objective later, I reckon.
but they also had like some plays where they were just like something would be going really bad in the game, and then they would just 5-man run at a side lane, or like they would like start up a base race, and they would just be like some like weird shit like this shouldn't be happening, but it happens because they commit to it, and like I don't know, I feel like the whoever is shot calling on the team, like there's some like I wouldn't say it's good macro, it's just like, can I use the word innovative? Like, yeah, like caught people by surprise, right? Okay,
Yeah.
final question that I have on the MSI topic. I want to talk about your out of game experiences. Like, did you enjoy your time in Brazil? Did you get to eat a lot of Brazilian food? I don't even know what Brazilian food is, but like, did you enjoy your out of game experiences there as well?
We were 95% of the time stuck in the hotel for like reasons. So we obviously wanted to scrim as much as possible leading up to the games. We only had, I think, 4 or 5 days of scrims. Like the getting off the plane and then sleeping, and then we had 4 or 5 days and then game day. So there was no time for sightseeing or anything on before the games. But what was really good is that the hotel that Riot provided for us was like this awesome 5-star place, and there was three meals a day were catered for, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, with this really nice buffet restaurant, which was great. It was actually amazing. But the one time we actually I went out twice. I went out to some Brazilian pub down the road, which was really good, and alcohol was like really cheap. It was like $3 for a beer down at the pub, which was great. And then we went out together as a team later on, just a walk down the road. We went to like a market and stuff. And the country seems extremely multicultural. It was very, very vibrant and very intense. Like a lot of things going on at once. So yeah, saying that, I had a great time. I would have loved to explore more if I had the time. But yeah, sadly, unfortunately, that was just dedicated to practice.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you had a good time. Hopefully, you'll get to go there again, sometime. All right. I don't think I need to ask you that one, Nick. You haven't been to Brazil recently.
No.
So you haven't?
No,
All right.
sorry.
Thought I'd just double check. You know.
Yeah. I live in an interesting
Maybe Nick was actually the coach for the Gigabyte Marines. So he's like, oh, maybe their coach put together this really awesome team.
Yeah.
Like he's like talking him up, and he's like, these guys don't know. It was secretly me. All right, so I think we can move on. Do you have any other questions on that topic, Nick? Or should we move on to OPL Split 2?
Yeah, this is the one I'm excited for.
This is the one I'm excited. This is the one I'm excited for a while. So.
I love.
Like OPL is my region, and you know, as fun as it is to watch international, like it's still like the oceanic rivalries, the things that are going on Oceania. That's the funnest thing to talk about, right? So, what I want to do for this section is I kind of want to get your guys' power rankings for the upcoming split. So I guess we'll start at the bottom, right? We can start with whoever you think is going to finish in 8th place, and then work our way up to Direwolf, the first place team, whoever you think that may be. So shit, spoiler alert. So yeah, I guess. Do you guys need a bit of time to think about it, or
I'm good.
would you be ready?
Yeah, I'm ready
You good?
whenever.
All right. Should we do? I guess we'll do Nick first this time,
We'll
and
do
then
eighth
we'll
place?
do Shop.
All the
8th place
way
up. Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
way up.
Oh, actually, I have a better idea. Should we do like each at a time? Would you
Yeah,
guys be
yeah,
okay to
I
do
reckon
that?
we'll start with 8th
Yeah.
place, and then if anyone has any, we'll have a discussion. So
Alright.
8th place, I have Regicide. So we're filming this a little bit early, so we don't. No one haven't released anything about the roster. They're not on the contract database. I don't know what Regicide's roster is going to be. There was a competitive ruling for Prowler, which was the new ADC apparently. He's been competitively ruled for an entire split. Little Decoy, I assume their new support, was banned for 2 weeks. And then I don't know who the top mid and jungle are. So for that reason, I'm gonna just have to put them 8th place. Like there isn't a whole lot of extra talent they can go towards, especially this late into the split. So I wish Regicide the best of luck, but I don't feel like they're going to be able to pick up the individual players necessary to be able to compete in the upper echelons of the OPL. So I put them 8th place.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I put Regicide 8th place, but for a different reason. I think that since they haven't previously been exposed to the whole gaming house, it is absolutely a game changer, and the infrastructure and the management and coaching and everything that comes under the whole gaming house category. It's just they have little to no experience about how to run a house properly, let alone deal with conflict and learn from scrims and all this stuff. I really, really do think they'll struggle on that front. So yeah, that's why I put them 8th.
I started to mention this for the whole Regicide thing. For people who don't know, Regicide, they relegated XL5 coming into. They were very dominant in the OCS. They had a few competitive rulings on the way, changing the roster, but they didn't lose an entire. They didn't lose a game in the regular season. They did very well in playoffs. I'm pretty sure they 3-1'd, and then they 3-1 or 3-1 So we're doing very well in the OCS. However, it does seem like they are being forced to make roster changes or making roster changes. So they're just a big question mark. And as Sharp was saying, this organization is very new to the OPL, and there are obviously questions you have to ask about their ability to be able to manage a gaming house, because it is a difficult prospect to do. Scott?
Yeah, I think they'll finish 8th as well. I think, like Nick said, there's not a whole lot of players left available. We don't know their roster. They got fined for not putting forward a roster so far. Like I believe they could even end up forfeiting if they don't find a roster to put together. It's actually pretty incredible. Like they face so many competitive rulings. Like I think they've been through 14 players, and like they're going to go through more players again. And it's like where are they finding them? It's just crazy. Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll move on to 7th place. I guess we'll just go backwards this time. I'll start, then we'll go Sharp, then Nick. 7th place for me would be probably Tainted Minds. I think that their roster, which they're putting forwards, is I don't think that it's a significant improvement on last split. I think that I just don't see them being able to take games from any of the teams. Like they'll win against Regicide, or they'll have competitive games against Regicide, which I think they'll come edge out on top. But against Abyss and every team upwards, I think that they're just not going to stand a chance.
For the viewers
what do you think?
who don't know, what is TAM's new roster, Scott?
Oh, TM's new roster is they're keeping Praedyth. Only Shock is the new mid laner. He's up and coming talent, but I don't think that compared to the other OPL mids, he'll stand up. Low skill player, which the name says it all, and T-Gun. So
Holy shit.
yeah, I'll move on to Sharp. Was that a bit harsh? I didn't. Yeah.
Jesus. No, mine is a family, Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I actually put Tainted Minds 7th as well, purely because I think that they won't. I really do feel like they won't be able to beat Abyss, and I as you know, as we'll find out soon, that I actually put them above them, and yeah, I don't think if they can't, I don't think their roster can actually beat Abysses. So, you know, if they can't beat Abysses, I can't really put them any higher than that. So, yeah.
I also put TM 7th. I do like what they're doing. Like bringing in T-Gun, I think is a really good move for them. Low skill for Squidgy, like I'm not part of TM, but I think that's just more of a thing about Squidgy. He's a quite a volatile player. Like he'll just Tristana jump. Let's just set the scene, right? Imagine you're playing a best of 5 tournament with Squidgy Boy as your ADC, and if you win this best of 5, you will be promoted to the OPL. And imagine that you're playing mid lane with his team, and he's playing Tristana, and he just jumps into 5 people, and then he throws a single game. Alternatively, he can jump in and he can get a few kills. Like Squidgy is a very volatile player, and low skill is not. And so I think that's what they're doing for that roster change. Shock for Wizard is quite an interesting move. Shock is very high rated in the solo queue ladder. Like he's usually sitting at around like 10th, that sort of point. He's got a few pocket picks like the Zillion. He's a bit of an interesting player, but like when it comes to the mid lane talent in OS, like spoiler alert, Luch is coming back. Fantix obviously, Triple, Swiffer, Rhymer. Like he's coming into a very hard. He's got a lot of hard opponents to make, and I just don't think he's going to be able to be up to the task. This split, maybe in future splits he develops more, but at least this split, I don't think he's going to be able to be up to the task. And TM were pretty comfortably the 7th best team in the OPL because of the 2-0 they fell to Abyss. It seems like Abyss were stronger at that point, so I'm just going to have to put TM 7th. So I believe relegated teams in the promotion tournament will be TM and Regicide.
Right. Okay, move on to 6th place. I'll let you start this time, Sharp. Who's your 6th place team?
Yeah, my 6th place team is Abyss. I do really like that they have had they've decided to put Fluch in mid lane. I think that's a really big upgrade from, was it Frey, I believe?
Yep.
Frey?
Yeah, Frey.
The upgrade from Frey. I really do think that's a significant upgrade. Luch has always been, a really high rank player who's rank 1 sometimes. I don't know who's rank 1 at the moment, but he has been rank 1 before, so he obviously has a lot of talent and he's been around the scene for a while. So I think he'll be a really good addition to the roster, and I think that Luch will be the defining factor that puts them above Tainted Minds. And through Luch and his dominance in the mid lane, that they will be able to take games convincingly off Tainted Minds. But in saying that, I really do think that Pabu's playing, Pabu. Yeah, so Pabu's there.
Pabu's playing.
Top laner. Yeah, so I think Pabu has tremendous potential. I don't really like to say the word potential, like it kind of like hurts me a bit, but he really is an up and coming player, and I do have faith that he will be a really good top laner, and he'll really eventually be a top. I could confidently say within I don't know the time frame, but within a decent amount of time, he could be a top 2, top 3 top laner because he has that passion, he has that drive. So in saying that, yeah, Luch, Pabu together, between them, easy 6th place over Tainted Minds.
Okay. Do you want to go next, Dick?
Yeah. All right. We have some differences. For 6th, I put Avant-Garde. So, the way that I like to think about the difference between TM and the 7th place team and the 6th place team, I think it's gonna be a huge gap. Like, I think that TM and Regicide will not take, like, it will very, 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 very unlikely for them to take a single game off any teams higher than them. However, the reason why I put AV below on the lowest end of those the upper tier is I think the way that they play the game is quite outdated. Notably, the way that they play the game was a very late game oriented style. They relied heavily on Triple to facilitate them to getting to that late game through his very strong play. And I think that Series, at the start of the split, he had quite a good showing. However, it did sort of go through that he's a more rookie player, and he wasn't a player that too many people are excited about, and he is sort of showing to be a weaker top laner relative to the likes of Flares, the likes of Parvu, Tally, Chippies, whatever. Their bot lane, Blinky and Jakey, like they're going to be a consistent bot lane. They're not going to necessarily win laning phases or win games for the teams, but they're not necessarily going to win. And I just like looking at the AV team, their roster. It's going to be entirely on Triple to be able to carry. I do think Sybol is a good player, but the way that AV functions as a team, like they're very late game styled, and I don't think Sybol works with that mindset like at all. I do think that Pinch is a really smart person, like he was on the show before. And I do hope he proves me wrong because I like AV. But at least the way that the team functions at the moment, they're very late game style. I don't think their roster is in a particular way, and the way they play the game, I don't think is the best way to play the game in the current meta. So that's the reason why I have them 6th.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's the triple show on AV, and I think that against particularly like Abyss, I think Lucha can stand up to triple pretty well, and then like Pabu versus Series, I think is pretty Pabu favored. So, I guess like the one thing that AV does have is they do have like a heavy game from jungler and Sybol, but I just don't think it'll be enough to make up like for the gap in individual talent on the lanes. All right, so we'll move on to 5th place. Start with you, Nick.
Alright, so 5th, I have Sin. So this hasn't been released, but it's on the contract database. Flares is no longer playing for Sin. I don't know why. It could be... I don't imagine they'd replace Flares. He was such a dominant force for them in the top lane. And they're getting in a new top laner from NA. He's coming from the Open Qualifier. I don't know anything really about this player. I look at his solo queue. He's quite high ranked. He does seem to play Jace and Fura, so similar champions to Flares. However, I do think that Flares was that sort of like 1 in 1 million sort of player for Sin. Like the way he played the game was so aggressive, and I don't think they'll be able to find that with essentially any other player. And I think because of that, if this player that's coming in is more cerebral and doesn't play as aggressively, it's just going to become... I don't think Sin's playstyle, which made them so dominant in the Gauntlet, is going to work. I do think that Juves performed very well in the Gauntlet, but I don't think that level is necessarily sustainable. I do like Juves a lot, but I do think that he is relatively weaker, and his style of just playing very heavily for his lanes can be punished against like a team that has more preparation and are aware of Juve's playstyle. That being said, I think they are better than Sin, just because I think FBI and Rogue is a very, very good bottom lane. Rhymer is a very explosive player, and I just think that their bot side of the map will be enough to be able to beat AV, and as well as like their top laner versus series. Like I don't think AV is going to build necessarily an advantage against Sin, whereas Sin can build an advantage against Sin. So I feel like Sin will finish 5th place.
Sin can build an advantage against Sin?
Sin will build an advantage against AV, my apologies.
Alright, what do you think of what place was that? 5th place, right?
5th place, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that 5th place will go to Sin. So that kind of... Yeah, so my reasoning kind of is the same. It kind of goes over the same reasons as to why I think AV will be 4th. It kind of ties in together. I believe that people will underestimate the significance of a Korean bootcamp. So despite Avant, they don't have the most star-studded roster apart from maybe Sybol and Triple. I do think the Korean bootcamp will prove absolutely... It will be absolutely detrimental, and I think it will prove that it will be like a game changer for them. Honestly, like I think being from first-hand experience, how much a Korean bootcamp can change an organization and the team and how they run and how they think, not just individually on a skill basis, but on a mentality. Like it really does test your mentality, and I think that if Avant took the Korean bootcamp seriously, I think that they will clearly be and definitively better than Sin. So for that reason, I'm putting Sin 5th. And also, like, I think that them losing Flares is a big downgrade. I don't really know much about the other top laner, but again, you have to take into account the relationship you build with a player in an organization takes time, and the trust that you have with your teammates takes time to build. And they had that eventually, like, towards the end of the split, Flares was starting to come to fruition, and he was starting to be quite dominant. And he was the key reason as to why they won single-handedly some of those games in the finals, in the Gauntlet. So in the finals run, yes, I reckon them losing Flares is very, very bad. I feel that it will be a huge change to their level of play, and it's really going to be up to Juves and his leadership to kind of pull together the team and come through with some wins. So yeah, I'll put Sin 5th.
Right. Okay. Who do I want to put into 5th? I think I would probably. I'm probably going to lock in Abyss for 5th place, actually. So as the Abyss last split seemed to really struggle, like finishing the regular split in 7th place. Even though they beat TM, I think that the new roster is definitely a big improvement. But, a brand new roster coming in against, teams like Sin. Yeah, sure, Sin's losing one player, but picking up a new top laner. And, against, the rest of the teams, I do think that it's going to take time for this roster to mesh together and to, Luch has been out of competitive for 6 months. So I do think it's going to take time for this team to get together. So that's for that reason I'm going to put Abyss into 5th. Okay, so it's starting to get a bit more interesting now, getting up to the good ones. So we'll do 4th place. So who do we should start with? We'll start with you, Sharp.
Yeah. Again, before I think I said that how Avant, I'm putting Avant 4th. Yeah, purely off the back of their Korean Bootcamp. They'll come in a lot stronger mental game, stronger level, higher level of play. And I really do think Sybol, him coming from a Korean Bootcamp before, he really does know what to expect. And I hope that Sybol did show a bit of leadership and guide and acted as a bit of a guide to kind of lead the players on his team to say, okay, it is going to be tough. You are going to come across a lot of challenges on the road and during a Korean boot camp, and it is fun. It is crucial how you see these challenges and how you see these barriers that you need to get through. Like, the way you approach them in terms of your mindset is absolutely crucial for you being able to learn and grow as a player. So if Sybol did act as a leader in the team, did positively come off the back of the bootcamp, that'll be a significantly stronger team. You can never underestimate a team that's come off a Korean bootcamp. In saying that, you have to question their duration in Korea. I'm not actually sure how long they were over there for. Do any of you guys know how long they were over there for?
They've been there for a few weeks.
Yeah, Pinch told us. I think it was a few weeks. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't remember exactly though.
Yeah. So was it enough time for them to grasp it? Because there's actually a period in which on Korean bootcamp where you're just losing, and then you get to a point where you have to get through that barrier. You have to we actually called it in Korea. It's like flicking the switch. A lot of the players in the team, it actually comes suddenly. It's like flicking the switch. Like, holy shit! All right, I'm approaching this all wrong, and then you just flick the switch and you just power drive. That's how a lot of the players only got challenger towards the end of the time there, and that's why Richard and Chippy's wanted that extra time, that extra week in Korea. They personally paid for that extra week. So yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah. So yeah, Chippy's and Richard paid for an extra week on top of what was supplied. I think a die was supplied 3 weeks. Or something. I think it was 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I'm not 100% sure, but then all I know is that Richard and Chippy stayed for an extra week. Which was...
Wow, this is really cool, dedication from them. Staying for that extra time.
And then they improved a lot just from the extra week, they said. So, yeah, Avant 4th.
Yeah, I mean, because you hear so many players, not going to name any names, whining about pay, and then you know, like saying, oh, I want to get paid more, I want to get paid more, but like those guys actually spending their own money to you know, try and improve themselves. That's really cool. All right, so fourth place for me, I'm gonna put the Chiefs. So Chiefs have sort of been on this decline for a long time now, and I think that a large part of it is the roster just isn't. It's not up to scratch anymore. Like Swiper is really struggling. Like the top lane world has changed. Like you can't play tanks every game anymore, and when he's not playing like tank champions, he seems to really struggle. And like, you know, in the finals, like that engage and Renekton at the end, you know, like costing really heavily for his team, and like, you know, I just feel like he's so exploitable. And you know, same with like Ejim. I think Ejim's a really good player when he's playing hard engaged champions like the Alistar and whatnot. But I mean, the mage meta has been around for a very long time now, and I see these players struggling, and I see each split Swiffer has to carry harder and harder. And I think teams are sort of noticing, like, if you can tie Swiffer down to his lane and then like keep him there, like the Chiefs really struggle. Like Swiffer has to go like 10-0 in a lot of those games in order for his team to win, right?
Yeah.
And I just think this keeps getting worse each split. So for that reason, I'm gonna put Chiefs in fourth place. All right, third.
I haven't
Getting really
Scott.
interesting now.
I haven't done my fourth place.
Oh, you haven't done your
I
fourth
haven't done
place?
my fourth place. Yeah, I put Abyss
Oh,
fourth
okay.
place. So the reason why the way that I'd like to describe this new Abyss roster is it's Direwolves light. What I think we can touch on this later, but the part of the strength of Direwolves, a large part of the strength of Direwolves, is the fact that there are no roster flaws. For instance, in Abyss, like Parbu, as the roster for Abyss is Parbu, Seb, Luch, Raid, and Rosie. All of those 5 players are good individually, like top 4, top 5 minimum. And there are some players that are higher than that. And for that reason, I feel that Abyss will be able to individually beat out Sin and AV, because there won't be a lane. So for AV, I don't think Sirius will be able to hold up against Parbu. Against Sin, I don't think Rhyme is going to be able to hold up against Luch. And because of those individual aspects, I don't think teams will be able to beat Abyss that are weaker than them individually. But the reason why I have Abyss 4th and not higher is that you do have to put questions on their macro plays. Like, even when Abyss 2-0'd and 2-0 Chiefs and Direwolves split 2 all those years, a year ago, that wasn't off the back of good macro play, it was just off the back of individual play. And the scene has gotten a lot better macro-wise, and I don't think that teams like Chiefs, Legacy, and Direwolves will have enough strong enough players to be able to match up against them individually, but also will be able to run Abyss around the map, and Abyss won't be able to win the games purely off individual play, and macro-wise they'll be a lot weaker. So that's my 4th.
Alrighty, so we'll move on to third place. So in terms of third place, I'm gonna put Sin. I think Sin's incredible aggression that they put forward this split, I think that teams will eventually sort of figure it out and get better and better at dealing with it. But I think for the next split, you know, assuming that their new top laner is at least comparable to Flares, then I just think like this team's incredible aggression, their hyper fast way of playing the game is, I think it's going to be really hard for teams that are not Direwolves Legacy to deal with. And, you know, even Legacy seem to be struggling to deal with it, but I think those teams are going to adapt the best, you know? Like, if you think of Direwolves and Legacy facing a problem in a game, then they are the teams that are going to be, in my opinion, most likely to be able to say, okay, what went wrong? Like, we need to take this step, this step, this step. Whereas, like, AV and, like, Abyss, like, all those, I feel like those teams are going to take a long time to adapt. All right, what do you think, Sharp, for your third place?
I am going to put Chiefs third place. All right, so my reasoning, again, comes down to this whole Korean Bootcamp thing. So Legacy, again, investing in performance, the organization investing in performance and sending the whole team over to Korea to Bootcamp is, again, like crucial for a team to grow. You know, you're not going to become a top team anymore in Oceania if you haven't done a Korean Bootcamp. And I really do think that the difference between Chiefs and Legacy is going to be dependent on those extra 2 people who didn't go to the Korean Bootcamp. So Chiefs only sent 3 of their members to the Korean Bootcamp, whereas Legacy did all 5. And I really do think that they're going to come in significantly stronger. Like I'm going to say from a Direwolves perspective, like I'm going to be very keen and eager to see how we stack up against them now. Like they'll be on top of the meta, and they'll be a lot more refined. And I'm hoping that for me, when I talk about Korean boot camps, I'm only ever talking about them in the most positive manner. Like Korean boot camp in certain aspects can break a mentality, and if you aren't a positive player, it can break you. But I'm hoping that these players are mature enough and I really do see the benefit of the Korean boot camp and improve. You can honestly improve like threefold, like as a player, like 3 times your current skill level. So I really do think that Legacy coming off the Korean Bootcamp as 5 players, and then Chiefs only sending 3 of their players will prove the biggest difference in the split. So yeah, that's why I'm putting Chiefs third. And in terms of roster, how I see them stack up, I think that Tally has the more carry potential than Swiper. Like Swiper is obviously a great tank player, and he can play some carries every now and then. But it's just like I just think Tally could every carry that you could put them, like if you named like Fiora, like all these carry champs. I just think that Tally at the highest potential, at his best level, he can just play better. Carbon, Spooks, they're very similar. Honestly, on a good day, either or could beat the other. Swiffer and Claire. So I'm hoping that Claire learned a lot from his Korean Bootcamp, and Swiffer not going to the Korean Bootcamp is just, it's really surprising, to be honest. Like I thought that he would have come along with the guys and then improved as a team, and I really think that will prove an issue for Chiefs, and we'll have to wait and see. He could have had some personal reasons that's why he didn't go, but yeah, I think I find that a bit strange. And then bot lane. So I find Lost an extremely talented player. I think, like, for example, Lost on particular champs is really good. I would say his Lucian is probably the best, if not, he's probably the best Lucian player on the server. I could probably say that. He's the best Lucian player on the server. And, like, he has the natural talent, and he can, if he harnesses it while he's in career, then, he might come out a great player and really show us that Legacy bot lane can take it to Direwolves. So yeah, it's really close, but yeah, I do put Chiefs third.
Yep.
Okay.
I put Chiefs third as well. I think that Chiefs, like
third?
the players, I think Chiefs is just a bit outdated, and the fact that they're not looking to innovate, will just show me that they're just gonna make that they're just gonna pull down the top tier. I think they will be able to beat AE, Sin, AV, TM, Regicide pretty comfortably, just because like they are still Chiefs. They still have very good understanding of macro play. I think Swiffer is the best player in OS. And I think that those 2 factors will just be enough where Chiefs will be able to comfortably beat AE, Sin, AV, those sort of teams. But when it comes to Legacy and Direwolves, against those teams, the weaker lanes, like Chiefs bot lane has been underperforming, Swiper has been performing quite poorly for quite a while. I think against those 2 things, like it's just going to be how hard can Swiffer carry, and like if in the game, so like he has gone 10-0 and they've still lost. So I feel that Chiefs will finish third, just because they are a bit outdated, and I think individually, apart from Swiffer, there's no one that can really stand up to the roster strength of Legacy and Direwolves.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all of us are going to agree on our second place being Legacy, right?
Yeah,
I think
and the first place Direwolves.
Chop, you've already talked to him about it, yeah. So, I guess, does anybody else have anything they want to say, like in regards to Legacy or Direwolves before we end up the show? Like, I think we've already talked a ton about the Direwolves, what their strengths are, whatnot. I don't think there's anything. Actually, sorry, not before we end up the show. There's like one more topic, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I can see like Sharp's like looking real tired. He's like, I'm ready for a
I'm
nap,
fine.
man. He's like,
Go for another 3
he's
hours.
like, go for another 3 hours. See that's what the Korean bootcamp and scrims gives you. You know, you can sit on a talk show for 10 hours in a row and never get tired. We need to go for Korea for that talk show bootcamp, Nick. No, I like how much of a fan of Korea you are though. Like it's it's the best region in the world. Like it's
Yeah.
like, you know, you're saying like how important it is to teams, and you know, I guess like having experienced it, maybe other people like don't realize like how big it is. Plus we need like somebody to go on about how great Korea is if we're gonna like go for the summoning insight replication. You know, you could be like our Monty, talk about how great Korea is all the time.
Special appearance.
Yeah. So next thing we're going to do is we're just going to do the week 1 OPL matchups. So we'll start off with Direwolves versus Chiefs. So we'll just do like predictions if you guys want to say like a quick piece, but I guess we've already talked a lot about stylistically what the teams are. So for me, I think this is going to be a 2-0 to the Direwolves.
Yep, 2-0 Direwolves, I think as well.
Yeah, I think it will be 2-0 Direwolves, but I don't think it will be definitively as it will be towards the end of the split, because obviously like a few of the members from Chiefs, going to Korea Bootcamp, and you know we haven't. A lot of the players in Direwolves at the moment have been taking a break because we expended ourselves massively while we were in Brazil. So I think that I wouldn't be surprised if Chiefs have a better read on the meta coming into the week 1, but yeah, I think in the end we're just overall a better team, and that, you know, even if I do believe it'll be 2-0, but I don't think the games will be definitively in our favor. But towards the end of the split, yeah, I think that will definitively beat Chiefs, especially in finals.
All right. Legacy versus Sin. I got to give this one 2-1 to Legacy. I think Sin will pick up the game, being incredibly aggressive. They'll snowball a game out, but I think Legacy is a better team overall.
Yeah.
I put 2-0 Legacy.
Yeah,
I'm not as much of a fan of Sin as you are, Scott. I think that Legacy, especially with the hyperbolic charm chamber that is Korea, 5 of their players coming in, Sin players 0. So I just think that Legacy are a very classy team, especially Lost and Cupcake. I think they have extremely strong players, and I think that their macro play is just a lot better than Sin. I think they will have learnt from the finals. Like, I'm sure they've watched that finals a lot of times as a team and actually figured out how Sin plays. I don't expect Sin to play any differently, because why would they change their play style? Just keep going ham. And I think that Legacy will adapt to that, and they'll 2-0 them.
Yeah, not much more to add on that. I agree.
All right. So is that how we're doing it now? Is like however many players went to a Korean bootcamp is what team's going to win. So AE versus Regicide. I don't think anyone went to Korea, so does nobody win this?
Are any of the new Regicide players Korean? Does that count?
Oh, good point. No, I think 2-0 Abyss. I think Regicide doesn't stand a chance. Actually, they like, I don't know, but maybe they even forfeit. So
yeah, they haven't actually submitted a roster. So Abyss has a roster. Regicide apparently don't. So for that reason, I think that Abyss will 2-0, and it would be pretty bad if Abyss don't 2-0. Like, Regicide don't even seem to be a team at the moment. So yeah, I do expect to be a 2-0.
Yeah, again 2-0. Be quite definitive as well, I reckon.
All right. And AV versus TM. AV more Korean bootcampers, no Korean bootcampers on TM, plus TM just a significantly worse roster in my opinion. So I think this will be a 2-0 to AV. Yeah.
Yeah, 2-0 TM. I think this will be probably one of the more interesting sets. It'll be interesting to see TM, especially with their new roster. I'm excited to see how Shock plays.
Yeah, again, 2-0 AV. Korean bootcamp fanboy.
Yeah. Alrighty. So that pretty much sums up OPL for the next split. That was fun going through all the teams. So I just want to round up the show by asking you about Rift Rivals. So you briefly touched on it before. You're really excited to go over and play a team like Gigabyte Marines. Do you like that this tournament has been added during the split? Like, what do you think this is going to mean for the OPL? And how do you guys think you guys are going to fare? That's like 3 questions. We'll start off with the first one. What do you think about this tournament? Do you like it?
Yeah, so I really, really do like how Riot are putting in more international tournaments, like having this extra international tournament in between, split the MSI and then Worlds. I think it's great because for wildcard teams to catch up, and especially regions like Oceania, how we have we're so isolated, like there's no one else we can really verse, unlike other regions where you can actually verse. I think like Turkey can verse EU and stuff like that. They can scrim EU teams, things like that. We're so isolated. So I think having this edition of this international tournament really does allow these wildcard regions to significantly improve. And I really do hope implement these more over the coming years, and hopefully maybe what I would like to see next year is an international tournament in between the split 1, between the beginning of split 1 and MSI. That would be really great.
Right. How do you guys think you guys are going to fare as a region, and then as Direwolves individually as well?
Yeah, so it's really hard to say because I don't know the strength of the teams apart from Gigabyte Marines, and even they've had a roster swap, and we've only ever versed them twice, so it's really hard to say. And coming off MSI, when you watch a team playing, like versing them is completely different, and it's really hard to see how you stack up individually against these teams. So it's nearly impossible to say, really. But I'm going to be optimistic and say that we will do decently, and especially since, I think at least us and Legacy will do decently. I think that Sin will struggle a little bit, especially with the addition, having a new top laner and having 0 international experience, as well as, not coming off any Korean bootcamp or anything like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they're a tad underwhelming. But who knows? Anything can happen. Like, Sin kind of showed up at finals. Obviously showed up at finals. So they could honestly do the same thing there and surprise everyone. I'm not going to put them down in that sense.
Right, okay. What about you, Nick? Do you think Oceania's going to do well at this tournament?
Well, I hope so. But I mean, Oceania has been quite a weak region in the wildcard events, so I'm optimistic, but I wouldn't get too excited. I do think that hopefully you guys will do well, because I do pick you guys to be the team that comes out first seed. I do think that you guys do have a pretty good shot at playing well in the play-in stages again for Worlds. So I do think that Oceania won't do particularly well at Rift Rivals because there's no actual real history for us other than Chiefs for the qualification for IM that we've actually done well at an international event, and I don't really see too many improvements to like rosters or whatever to actually justify me saying that this will be the international event of OS. So no, I think that hopefully we'll do well, but I mean my analysis is saying that we'll just probably do quite mediocrely as we usually do in international events.
It's quite sad.
I'm sorry.
It's quite depressing. Like when I'm like, how I was gonna do, and you're like,
Nah.
and I'm like, oh, all right then.
Yeah.
No, like you said though, we do have high hopes, especially for the Dials. I do think this is the best team Oceania's ever put forward, and I mean, like, sure, Chiefs qualified for AM, but like, they've been, how many times have they been overseas, and they've never made it out of the group stages, out of the, I guess, what would be the play-in stage now, right? So, I do think the Styles roster is our best shot at making that. So I really do hope that you guys do well at Worlds, and I guess to a lesser extent Rift Rivals as well. Okay, so I think that pretty much rounds up the show, right? Like, do you have anything else you'd like to say, Sharp, before we end this up on Rift Rivals, or you guys at Worlds, or just anything you want to say?
Yeah, I'd like to thank. I would like to kind of thank our, the support that we've been getting from our members and the membership program. How they've been really passionate and really supportive about our team. And I'm really excited for the future of Direwolves. We've really been putting effort into our structure and creating some sort of a culture and values, and trying to define our values within Direwolves. I really think it's proving to be an exciting split for Split 2, and me personally, the team and the players are quite excited to see how these teams have improved across coming back from the bootcamp. So it'll be really cool to see what they've taken from Korea and moving forward as a region. I do think it's crucial that teams are going to should invest in this performance aspect. And yeah, I'm really happy to see that the region has been taking these steps to improve our level of play. And in the end, it comes down to us working together as a region to improve. Like, even if we improve, it's not going to change anything. We have to improve together and share things that we know in order for us to get to a level of play. Because you're only as good as your practice. You're only as good as the people you get to verse. So yeah, thank you. I want to thank the founders for being supportive of Direwolves, sponsors LG, and I want to give a quick shout out to Dave Harris from Quinnipiac Capital, being super supportive, not just financially, but being a really great role model for myself, and Jonathan Brown, the performance director, who's come in to help. I really like to give a shout out to him. He's been of great use to not only myself, but in motivating and inspiring the team to take our organization to the next level. And Nathan, who's been through my workings with him over the past few years, and especially this split, he's put in an insane amount of work into getting Direwolves where it is today. So, those three guys are really quite crucial to were really crucial to our success and winning the first split. So, to anyone out there who is a fan of Direwolves, I hope you guys can continue to support us through Split 2, and we'll make sure to represent us better than we did first time around internationally.
Alrighty. Yeah, no, actually, just a quick touch on Dave as well. Like, Dave, messaged him after we did the first show, and I was like, do you think any Direwolves members would be interested in doing the show? And he was like, yeah, heck yeah. And he was like really, really helpful in getting this set up, which was really awesome. I was so excited to do this interview. Like, we organized this like weeks ago, and I'm like, talking to Nick, like trying to get the questions sorted. Like, it's been really fun. I really want to ask a lot of these questions too, and like, hopefully this show as well can provide a lot more insight into the behind the scenes. People can get to know you as a coach and as a team a bit better. So I think that we will wrap up the show there. I guess thank you to everybody who is watching, and if you do like the show, then don't forget to subscribe. I'll put a link to the Direwolves membership thing in the subscription as well. I might put a bubble as well, like somewhere along the lines earlier on in the show, so you guys can click on that. And yeah, thank you heaps for coming on. Really appreciate it. And yeah, best of luck in the upcoming split.
Thank you.